Ray in Maryland is joining us now. Go ahead, Ray.
Hey, thanks, Eddie. Hey, Tom, how you doing, brother?
What's going on, Ray? How you?
Not much, man. I got to see you play live a handful of times with Rage. I regretfully never got to see Audio Slave. I did, however, get to see Chris with Soundgarden a handful of times as well. But my question for you, Tom, is you have cited your biggest guitar influences. You know, you've pointed out Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, you know, two of the greatest ever. What was the process and or transition to where you are the most unique guitar player I think I've ever heard, and I don't even think it could be duplicated. What got from those influences and what took you to what you became? I mean,
great question, Ray, because you don't sound like the people who influenced you.
Right.
And you're very identifiable, which is a mark of a great player.
Yeah, well, first, I didn't start playing guitar until I was 17 years old. I had only heard of one other guitar player ever, famous guitar player that had started that late that made records, and that was Robert Johnson. He had to sell his soul to the devil to do it. So I was
the old blues guy. Yeah,
exactly. Given my Catholic upbringing, I wasn't about to do that. So I just practiced my ass off.
Sold it to Jimmy Page.
And those, and those were, I mean, the Randy Rhoads poster was the poster on my wall when I was practicing 8 hours a day, right? So I amassed all this technique like you would when you're practicing Eddie Van Halen and all that. But when you start playing guitar, you play guitar because you like other guitar players, and you consider good guitar playing to be guitar playing that sounds like the people that you love. So that's what I was trying to do. Then I even got into Yngwie World for a minute and Steve Vai World and all that. And it really was only at the beginning of Rage Against the Machine where I started to find my own sound. I had dabbled with, my poor college roommate who was like a fan of like opera and stuff, and I'm playing like Bark at the Moon and Grim Reaper in my room.
Imagine not big at Harvard at the time.
Yeah, we made it. I went to the Ozzy show when Motley Crue opened for them, and we made a sign that said Harvard barks at the moon. They were very, very popular on the subway after that. But I remember I was in my room, and I at the time everybody had the Eddie Van Halen guitar, which the one knob with volume, right? That was like the coolest guitar. I was saddled with a Gibson Explorer that had a bunch of knobs, bunch of useless knobs, as it turned out, aesthetically not pleasing. But it had a toggle switch on it, right? And so one day I had my wah-wah pedal, and I was I turned one of the volumes down to 0 and the other one up to 10, was sort of toggling between with the wah-wah pedal, and my roommate, who just was so tired of hearing me in my Marshall half stack in our little room, was like, "Did you get a fucking keyboard too, dude?" And I was like, "Did that sound like a keyboard to you? Did that sound interesting?" So anyway, I put that in my back pocket, still practicing 8 hours a day, like all the shredding and the scales and whatnot. And then there was a very early Rage Against the Machine gig where we were opening up for 2 cover bands at a college out in the valley, and each of those cover bands had like a technical wizard on guitar, right? Like someone masterful. And I was like, if I'm going to be the third jackass playing, blazing Phrygian scales on this useless gig on a week afternoon there, I'm going to get off that hamster wheel. So what I started practicing were the eccentricities in my playing. I started practicing the mistakes. I was practicing 8 hours a day with the toggle switch. And all of a sudden, there was like sounds and textures, and I was like, rather than listening to Steve Vai and trying to sound like him, I was listening to a police helicopter and trying to sound like that. Rather than listening to like Eruption and trying to play that, I would go to the LA Zoo and like try to sound like lions. And I was like, Old MacDonald had a farm on the guitar. And then that lane was completely open. So when I started identifying as like the DJ in Rage Against the Machine, meaning I could draw samples played with, analog with my hands and a Marshall amp, but I could like, here's the thing, if you want to sound like Eddie Van Halen, listen to Eddie Van Halen. If you want to sound different, try to sound like a duck. And you may not sound like a duck, but you're not going to sound like Chuck Berry anymore.
I got to stop you there as much as I could hear this stuff forever, because in order to get your full song in, we got to end by a certain time.
Okay.
So
can I first tell the people like how I stumped Eddie Truck with my one metal question that stumped you? Do you remember what it was?
It might cut into your song.
Okay, let's hear the song. How many bells ring at the top of Hell's Bells?
I still don't know that. What is it?
It's 13. There's 12, and there's a long pause, and before the beat drops, it's 13. Let's play the song. This is me and Roman.
Well, this is, first of all, Joel, I don't know if there's an intro, but if I hear it, I'll get out immediately. But First of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure.
It's always fun to hang and great to do it on the air. We need to do it more often, but thank you. You got shows here on Sirius XM, too. You're on like 15
I'm on
channels,
50,
whatever. Tom, I work for Tom at this point. Here's Soldier in the Army of Love. I'll see you guys back live tomorrow starting at 3 Eastern. Thanks Tom.
Eddie.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Here it comes.